New hero interface.
My name? It will come to you.
Hey guys, what's up? So we have a new update on Advanced Server featuring hero adjustments, new ally skin, and more. First up, we've got a juicy buff for Leomord. His passive will now double his attack stat gain from critical chance. For example, is the item Berserker's Fury. If Leomord uses it, this 25% critical chance will become 50 physical attack. This means Berserker's Fury becomes even more valuable for him, giving a total of 115 attack stats. On top of that, his second skill cooldown gets a reduction in the late game. The developer said it's a way to give him more flexibility when building his items. Next, we have the buff on Chip. His teammates will now gain shield whenever they enter the main portal of his ultimate. Here's an example. This makes Chip's supportive role even stronger, allowing your team to engage in fights with more confidence. Next is the buff on Badang. The developer said he was struggling in the late game when his skills were on cooldown. To address this, they've lowered the cooldown of his second skill and ultimate. That's -2 seconds on his second skill, while -4 on his ultimate. And his second skill shield gets an extra 100 points in the late game, improving his survivability. Next is the buff on Vale. His burst potential is getting a big boost with increased damage on his second skill and ultimate. The second skill gets a 20% magic scaling increase and a flat 200-point base damage buff. His ultimate receives an even bigger boost with a whopping 40% magic scaling increase. To keep things balanced, the developer slightly reduced the sustained damage of both skills, but this trade-off should make Vale a real burst damage threat. Next up, we've got some adjustments on Xavier. The developers acknowledged that he can feel weak early and mid-game, and his late-game damage wasn't quite hitting the mark. To address this, Xavier's first skill is getting a damage buff, specifically for the early game. However, there's a strategic trade-off. His second skill will see damage reduction, but in exchange, the cooldown gets slashed by 2 seconds. This allows Xavier to use it more frequently for wave clear, setting up kills, and better crowd control effects. On top of that, his ultimate is getting a damage boost, specifically in the late game. While the cooldown gets a bit longer, we still have his passive skill to save the day. The cooldown reduction from his passive is almost tripled, allowing him to benefit greatly from cooldown reduction items and potentially spam his ultimate more often in battles. Next is the buff on Cecilion, where he can now move while casting his second skill. If you're a Cecilion player, you'll know this is a good buff, right? No more unnecessary pause when casting the skill. Next are the experimental changes on Aulus. His passive skill will now give attack speed instead of physical attack. And they've increased the bonus attack stat when reaching full stacks. So expect a faster Aulus if this update is implemented. Another change is his first skill, where they lowered its cooldown and increased its damage reduction, giving 50% on all levels. Skill 2 is changed big time. They've removed the bonus attack speed when using the skill. As you can see, no more fast attacks. The heal is still there, and it's now based on 1% of your maximum HP for every basic attack. And they also removed the limit of enhanced basic attacks. So if you have high attack speed, that means you can heal fast when using his second skill. His ultimate also received some adjustments. When leveling up, it will now give these stats. As you can see, they've removed the critical chance and replaced it with penetration. With these adjustments, we'll have to replace his critical build with attack speed. What can you say, Aulus players? Is it time to change builds? Next is the nerf on Harith. He was too strong in the gold lane, so the developers had to lower his base HP. That's -300 points at the start of the game, making him an easier target for ganks. Next is the buff on Julian. The developers aim to increase his jungling speed in the early game. To do that, they had to increase his attack speed by a few points, and the base damage of his first skill is also improved. Next is the buff on Joy. Just like Julian, the developers want to increase her jungling speed, and they'll do that by increasing her basic attack scaling from physical attack stats. Next is the nerf on Barats. His first skill will have a lower attack scaling, from 200 down to 160% attack bonus. I think this one is just fair, considering he's one of the best junglers right now. Next is the adjustment on Lunox. Her dark skill will no longer benefit from cooldown reduction during her ultimate state. Remember, it only takes effect after using her ultimate skill. This adjustment is based on the new talent, Temporal Reign, which we will talk about later. Next is the new skin of Alice, and it's called Dark Temptress. And these are the in-game effects. There was also a change on her role as well as Esmeralda. Both of them will be tank mains from now on. This also means they can use the new Thunder Belt because if you remember, it now has a role limitation. Marksmen and mages will only gain 50% of its unique passive effect. That also means War Axe will be a viable item for those two lovely tanks. Are you excited for these two heroes? Next is the new hero Zhuxin invading our main interface. Tap her and she'll speak just like the previous heroes.
How the world sees me is of little consequence. My name, it will come to you, eventually. A butterfly lights one's deepest desire.
Anyway, there was also a change in her ultimate where they reduce its shield points. Next is the new emblem, Temporal Reign. Using an ultimate skill will reduce the other skill's cooldown by 2 times faster within 4 seconds. This makes it more viable for a wider range of heroes, unlike before where it was limited to specific ones. And this is why Lunox had to receive the earlier adjustment on her Dark Skill 1. Next is Winter Crown, or more popularly known as Winter Truncheon on official server. They've confirmed our earlier video where we tested it on different heroes. The active skill Frozen can now be used without cancelling your channeling skills. Oddette players will love this one. Next is the new and improved Sanctum Island map. Western Desert will be removed and all maps will use the Jungle Creeps model from Sanctum Island from now on. It looks cleaner now, right? Next is the new defense stats. You can now see how much damage reduction your defense stats give. As you can see, I have 15 physical defense, which means 11.1% of physical damage is reduced. If I add dominant size, it becomes 36.8%. And if I buy 6 blade armors, the physical damage reduction becomes 78.4. Basically, it shows you how much damage you can reduce when adding defense stats. Last one is the new Cadia Riverlands background for heroes. The Wo Yi, Yin, and all the Cadia Riverlands heroes will have these backgrounds. Ling also gets a new look. It seems he will get a visual revamp. If you've noticed, he now skips in the middle when moving between walls. And that's it for our weekly advanced server update. So what can you say about the new map? Do you like the new talent, Temporal Reign? Share it in the comment section. That's all for this video. Stay safe and thank you for watching.